Record. And we will be able to start. So it's great to have y'all here. And I'm also going to share my screen so we can look at this little slideshow that we've made. So can y'all see that, Kealy? Is that showing up on your end?
Yep,
Okay.
looks good.
So welcome you guys to our little webinar about the 5 elements that animate our world as well as our own bodies and beings. So that's what we're really excited to be here and share with you guys today, is how these elements move and manifest in us as well as the world around us. So that's what we're here today. And just to introduce ourselves, I'll go first. So my name is Bailey, and I am a co-founder of the Integra Collective, which is an organization that 3 of my dear friends and I started a couple years ago, that's dedicated to regenerating the human-earth relationship through events and educational programs. So really gathering folks to connect us to the earth, our bodies, and each other. And that's why it's so wonderful to collaborate with Kealy, because she truly embodies that work as well. A little bit about me, I'm just living in the mountains of Western North Carolina. I am a holistic health coach and into lots of little different entrepreneurial projects. And I took Kealy's Discovering the Elements course last summer in Costa Rica, where Kealy lives. And it was really life-changing, and gave me a whole new lens and framework through which to view the world, my health, and my own energy. So now getting to collaborate with Kealy, both on this webinar as well as a longer form in-person course that Integra is co-hosting with Kealy this coming April, which y'all hear more about at the end of this presentation. It's really a dream come true, because I really look up to and admire Kealy as a mentor, a teacher, a healer. So really excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey. You were so sweet. Um, yeah, so I will go. I am Kealy Rudersorf, and like Bailey was saying, I live in Costa Rica the majority of the year. With my husband and our daughter. We have a farm down there, and we hold courses on connecting people deeply with nature through spirituality, energy, herbalism. We teach on permaculture, a little bit of everything. We hold ceremony. My husband is indigenous to Costa Rica, so we pull in a lot from his culture, sharing his ancestral knowledge with the plants that we use. So our company name is Kiss Botanicals, and along with connecting people to Mother Earth, part of our mission is also to keep his ancestral knowledge alive within his community. So we do community outreach as well. Um, we plan on hopefully working with the school soon. I think they're going to allow us to do it this coming year. And yeah, staying busy, farming mostly. And we're really excited to be with Integra this April. I think it's going to be so much fun. It'll be a different twist on teaching the elements, and I think it's going to be amazing. So I'm so happy that you guys are all here with us today. And yeah, I hope that you get a lot out of it.
Awesome. So we are going to get right into it. And first, just really introduce this elemental framework to y'all. So the 5 elements, what are they? And different traditional healing systems have different conceptions of the elements, but for us, we're going off these 5 elements, which are earth, water, fire, air, ether. And so this is the framework we're going to be using today to talk with y'all about. So Kealy, obviously we see how these elements manifest in the world around us. You can see the water that's raining down outside my window right now, fire in the wood stove. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with ether, ether can kind of be understood as space or the web in between or our connection to spirit. So that's why I chose a little delicate spider web to represent it. I like to think of it as like, yeah, our sense of interconnectedness, that like invisible thread. So obviously we see these in the world around us and like can feel their energy in that way from the warmth of a fire and whatnot. But why are the elements important to understand within us, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so the elements, one of the reasons I love the elemental framework is because you can see them, as Bailey was saying, you can see them directly in nature, and then those are reflected back within us. So we can see them on a very personal level within our bodies, right? Then right outside of our direct relationships with people who are near to us, and then within our communities as well as within our society. So the elemental framework can be looked at over all these different parts within our world. Um, so I'll just go through them and kind of tell you a little bit about each of them. So let's start with the earth. The earth element is, yeah, the earth element is all about our structure, is all about, right, our security, what we need. Think about Mother Earth. She nourishes, she gives unconditionally. It's unconditional love is the earth element. It's and so when we talk about structure, it's also our bones. So bone health is really important. Um, about security, right? Our fight, fight, freeze, or response is kind of managed by the earth element. And it's also about community. If you have ever picked up like a handful of healthy soil, what do you see in there? You see all these different parts, and they're all interconnected. um, that is looking at like with us within our community, right? To have a strong earth element means that you have all these different parts within your community and you feel supported and connected within your community. Um, so when we have excess earth, we think of it like a mountain, right? Unmoving. So people who have excess earth can often be really stuck in their ways. They are stubborn. They can be stubborn, really stubborn, and unmoving. They don't want to change. And depression can really hold on to them. Um, and then the kind of at the other end of the spectrum of that, we have earth and lack. And so I like to think of that as like sand sifting through our fingers. And, someone who has a weaker earth element, right, like sand, it has no boundary. It kind of shifts and shapes to what the circumstance wants them to be. They can also be really oversensitive. They can be really flighty, right? There's not a lot of substance to them. They can also be very isolated and alone. Also, their relationship with food can be cannot be very healthy. So, um, that is our earth element.
I love it. So
Um,
just to give people like a little idea of like what we're doing here. Obviously, this is just such a short intro to how the elements manifest in us. And so as we're going through these, just kind of identifying those characteristics that Earth represents in our bodies and beings, and then when that's out of balance or when it could need some support. And of course, these are by no means like sentences or prescriptions, right? It's just suggestions about like different ways of where the element could either use some taming or use some lifting up and supporting. So love that. And please go on, Kaylee. I just wanted to give people a little like idea. And I'm writing some notes in the chat that I'll send if that's helpful to people. So
cool. Thanks, Bailey. Um, Yeah, so going on to water, the water element. Um, the water element is all about, you think of a river, right? It's all about the flow. You think of the water cycle is constantly changing. It's able to go with the flow. So someone who has a strong water element is able to go with the flow, right? They have a plan, something comes along unexpectedly, and they're able to shift and kind of go with what needs to be done, and they're okay with those changes. Our water element is also connected to our emotions. And then it's connected to a lot of our systems, all the systems within our body that have fluids, almost all of them. The circulatory being the one that's not connected. So it's connected to our urinary, our reproductive, our nervous system, our endocrine system, and our lymphatic system. Um, so, when we are thinking about someone who has an excess water system, they have really big emotions. They're really, really excited about something, like think of the waterfall, like a rush of emotions. And then they can be really happy one moment and then really sad and depressed the next. And these emotions are almost like too big to hold within themselves. Um, Also, with our reproductive system, they can be highly sexualized. So just having a really strong sexual desire. They can be super passionate. They can be constantly flowing from one relationship, job, house, etc., to another, to another, to another. So it's all, yeah, all about the flow. And when there is a weaker water element within us, right, we can think of like water as frozen. So what
Mm,
happens when we're frozen, right? That might be someone who has a touch of PTSD. They don't have a lot of creativity. There's no flow out of their body. That also means that there's not a lot of sexual desire. Um, and connected to their emotions, they often don't feel their emotions or they don't know how to process them.
mm.
So, yeah, they're just kind of frozen in space and time. So that is our water element. And as I'm going along, yeah, if you in the chat, if you kind of want to pipe in and say like, oh, I feel this, or oh, this seems really interesting, whatever you're feeling as we're going along here. The thing about the elements is that they're within all of us. We all have these elements, and sometimes they're really in balance. Other times, one of them gets out of balance, and we can guide it back into balance. Um, so yeah, and then you can also think about which one you are. Um, so the fire element is all about power. It's about self-knowledge. It's about consumption, consumerism being part of that as well. It's also about anger or how we deal with frustration. Um, it's connected to our muscular system. People who have a strong fire element are super responsible. They know what needs to be done and they do it without an issue. And yeah, so when there is an excess fire, I'm sure you guys can think of what an excess, like a burning, raging fire looks like. Um, there is explosive anger, right? It lashes out at people. It can get really, really scary sometimes. Also, excess fire people are like go, 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 all the time. They can be super competitive. They love drama. They often create drama. They judge others and they often want to control the situation. Um, yeah, and then let's see here, weak fire. So instead of raging outside, they rage inside. They rage at themselves.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of self-criticism that's going on. Um, there's also when you look into someone who lacks fire, there's a dullness in them, especially seen in the eyes. There's just like a meekness to them. Um, yeah, and there's not a lot of interest of things outside of themselves. They don't really have the motivation or desire to do anything. So they just this can kind of fall under depression as well. I think depression is more of an umbrella term when we think of it in terms of the elements in traditional medicine. So yeah, depression can be under the weak fire. So um, yeah. And then going on to look at air is our next one. Air is all about think of like a hurricane or a tornado, right? It's all about speed. It can be going really, really fast. And then also think of a really hot, humid day when there's no breeze. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. So air is all about the speed, right? It's
Mm,
all about the movement or mobility, the quickness. Um, it's also one of its homes is the heart. So a lot of it is about the heart desire and also about integrity. So doing things for the goodness of doing them, not for, oh, I'm going to do this because I'll get something out of it, right? Doing it because it's coming from your heart. So excess air. You can think of excess air as that tornado, right? They are going about, they're all over the place. They're going from this thing to that thing, and they have a million different ideas. They're constantly thinking. Air is very mental. So they're constantly thinking of a million different things to do, and they never actually do any of them. Um, Excess air people can also be very impatient. They wanna do it all. Hyperactive, ADHD is definitely an air imbalance. Um, yeah, and their actions are automatic. They don't really the energy isn't in their body, so they don't really feel what they're doing. They just do it out of automation. They can also be super pious, so, like, thinking that they are doing the right thing all the time. Um, yeah, and then so the exact opposite of that would be the air, the lack of air. Um, so think about that stuffy, no breeze kind of day. So there's no mobility um in them. They just kind of sit. There's not a lot of mental action going on. There's no heart to heart connection within them. Um, they can be pretty immature. These are the people that seem to still be like 12-year-olds, you know, with their interactions, with their jokes, and that kind of thing. Panic attacks can also be seen in a lack in air. So, um, yeah. And then last but not least, kind of describing the part of ether, which Bailey was talking about a bit. Um, Ether is another word for ether is space. So, space meaning that it is the way that the other four elements connect.
mm,
How do air and fire connect together? That is where they are connecting. That is the ether, the space of connection. It is also our connection up to spirit or divine or God, whoever you believe in, universal energy. Um, yeah, so let's see here. Excess ether is is really, really, really spiritual. There's not a lot of groundedness. Someone who spends all their time talking to, with, or about the divine, and they have a really hard time paying their bills, finding structure of themselves to live in, um, forming connections. It's all about God for them, or all about the divine, all about their connection to spirit. Um, they often also have this desire to go home, and it's not necessarily to go home like they don't want to be here on earth, meaning that they don't want it's not about suicide, it's more about like they don't feel rooted in this space.
mm,
um and then the exact opposite of that would be lack of ether, and that is more about no connection to the divine, to space, also including nature in that. So no connection to nature, no understanding that their actions can have a positive or negative impact on Mother Earth. Um, so yeah, those are the 5 elements. That was a really, really fast run through of them.
Yeah.
Um, so as Bailey and I will talk about a little bit later, we'll be getting into more about how that looks for all of us.
Yeah, and I so like it's interesting taking notes on some of these things you're saying. It's like, oh, some of these things jump out as I feel them within myself or even on a societal level, that ether like lack of connection to the divine, lack of connection to nature. I think we see that lack of ether in our society. So it's really cool to see how the elements, like you said, manifest on a personal level, on a relational level, even on a societal level. And so this next slide, this is just a little bit about, yeah, a little more kind of visuals around the elements within us. And as you can see, Kaylee was saying, like one of the homes of air is in the heart. So the elements do correspond to different chakras, but they don't necessarily only live in these areas of the body. Kaylee, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, when on a deeper role of the elements, I do body work. And when I'm working with someone, knowing that one of their elements is out of balance, or when I know one of my elements is out of balance, right? There are certain places within the body that we can start to work with. The chakra being one of them, but also if someone is having an imbalance in the earth element, right? We're gonna pay a lot of attention to their knees, for example. If someone is having an imbalance in their fire, we're going to pay more attention to their eyes, right? You can see someone's eyes when they're really angry. Um, yeah, so knowing that the elements manifest within our body, and when they're out of balance, ailments can come to the surface.
Mhm.
And then on the more grander scale, right, when the elements are out of surface, out of sync, within our society, then we start to have societal problems, right? That's when war comes out. That's when we have fights. That's when we have gun violence. All these bad things. So the great thing about the elements is that there are pathways, there are ways to refine that balance so that you can find your harmony.
I love that. And so this next slide is just a little bit of an introduction to that. And basically this elemental continuum, which I think Dewey's on the video here, and she made these lovely graphics for the elements. But when we look at the
Yay.
elements, it's like no element exists in isolation, right? They're always in relationship to each other. So we see this continuum of air and earth, for example, and water and fire. Um, so Kaylee, like knowing this kind of compass, how do we begin to find balance within this framework, like you said?
Yeah, so I like to think of it as there are 2 continuums, right? So we have the earth at the bottom and then the air at top. So when my air is out of balance, I like to think of the earth helping me refine my balance. Likewise, and you can think about that, um, within nature as well. It's a little bit easier with the water and the fire. So when the water is out of balance, I like to use the fire. I can sometimes use air and I can sometimes use earth to balance my water. Because if my water is all about out of balance and I'm really dry, right, I'm going to use more earth and more fire. I'm going to be pulling on. So you can, this is kind of the pathway to find it. Um, you think, yeah, so thinking about it in nature, right? If something is really, really damp, something is really wet all the time, emotionally, that would be someone has a lot of emotions all the time. They're hypersexual. They are constantly going and flowing. You know, you're going to want to bring a little bit of fire or earthiness to them. So you're going to be saying, okay, earth, like let's focus on your earth element. Let's focus on your fire element. Um, to find that more in balance.
Yeah, totally. So just to bring it into our bodies to kind of like think about this on a tangible level, what does that mean how we find balance within this framework? And so this kind of the way that you can go about it and thinking of the elements is looking at your constitution and what might be, in excess or in lack at that moment in time. Say you are feeling that really excess watery and you're just got the emotions like a waterfall and like you feel really passionate, but then you're really sad and you're just flowing and flowing. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna strengthen those weaker elements and tame the elements that are in excess. And so I know that, for example, when I took Kaylee's class and started to learn this framework, it really opened my eyes to approaching my wellness and my personal development in a whole different way. So I came to learn that I am quite fiery, and I can also be prone to some excess air, like I've got a million ideas going at once, and I'm always like, what do I gotta do? And then I just, in my body, that shows up as a lot of excess heat. So for me, my imbalances are like redness, inflammation, heat in the stomach, heat in the liver. And so that's all indicating some signs that my fire might be raging a little bit too hard, and could use some strategies to help bring that into balance with the other elements. And so that means I'm going to go about my food, my movement, my personal practices in a totally different way to someone who might have really weak fire. And so I know Kaylee has these awesome examples because her husband and her daughter are like these fiery, fiery beings, where Kaylee is not. Kaylee, look at her. She's so like grounded, earth, like solid, stable water. So how does that show up like in your household, Kaylee, with these elemental constitutions?
Yeah, so right opposites attract. I am definitely earth, water based person. Um, and my husband is like full on fire. Our daughter is as well. So from the food that we eat, when I do fermented veg, kimchi or sauerkraut, right? I make one for me that's super spicy because I need heat. I don't have that fire. I tend to run cold. So I need that extra spice in my life. And so I make one for me and then I make one for them and we split it up. And our 4-year-old daughter, she just turned 4 and she knows now. She goes, "Oh, I can't do spicy. No spicy for me," because she already knows that she has fire within her. It's fire loves fire, right? So you can think about a fire raging, it likes the extra fire, it likes to go, go, go. So oftentimes, even though you are fiery, you do like spice, but spice usually isn't great for people who have a lot of fire within them. Um, Also, yeah, within our household, I it's really important how we move. I need an like occasional upbeat movements throughout the day, and my husband, Celine, needs to move pretty much throughout the entire day. Like he can't stop. So when we're doing projects together, right, that looks very different. So he's the constant going, 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 going. I'm the one that's doing the occasional in depth and then pulling away and doing the lunch, doing the self-care stuff around, because that's more part of my nature. Um, and yeah, I mean, we find balance, and the great part is that we are able to find that balance within us, right? He pushes me and I pull him back. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see within a household.
Yeah, and I know one of the biggest teachings that I've taken from you, Kaylee, is how this framework is kind of a gateway into greater self-compassion and compassion for others, because when we begin to see certain characteristics as just our elements, whether they're showing up in excess or they're a little weak at that moment in time, it makes things like a little less personal. And it's like, oh, we are a part of nature. This element is flaring or this element needs some support. What tools can we bring in? And yeah, it's a beautiful way to have greater like compassion and understanding with others.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's oh, this is perfect. I feel like there's a lot of ways to find balance, right? And compassion for others using the elemental framework. It allows us to see it as, oh, it's not all about me, it's their imbalances. Um, which is really beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the strategies for balancing excess fire.
This is like I should put this on my refrigerator.
Yeah, yeah, print it out. So when we have excess fire, one of the easiest ways is to start strengthening our water, bring in more water. One of the other examples that I can share with you just within our household, when I have a stomach ache, right? I'm going to be bringing in ginger. I'm going to be bringing in mint, things that are warming, things that are hot, and that helps my stomach ache. But when my daughter or when my husband have a stomach ache, I'm not going to be giving them ginger. That's going to exacerbate the problem, right? So I'm going to be bringing in the herbs that are cooling, that are moistening, things like marshmallow root or um, I can't think of the more temperate zone herbs. We have a couple down in Costa
Aloe
Rica.
vera, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah. I have them eat a lot of chia and flax. So
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah, so strengthening water. Water likes a lot of rest, so a lot of pause. That can be reading a book, that can be meditation, that can be just letting you come to a pause. Yeah, and then any sort of water therapy, submerging yourself in water. And not submerging yourself in water and like swimming 50 laps, which is also great, but for other reasons. But really enjoying the with intention, right? Submerging yourself with water, enjoying the energy of the water.
Mm.
And then learning how to feel and to process your emotions. Remember at the beginning, we said that the water was manages our emotions. And so if we're not able to feel them, right, we're not able to process them and let them move through us. So that's really important. And there's lots of different ways, lots of different methods to do that journaling, talking it out. Um, yeah, moving our bodies so that those emotions can move through us. Yeah, and so dancing and loosening it up, right? Not being so rigid, letting that those emotions, letting that energy flow within us. Dancing is like one of the best ways.
Love that.
um, yeah, and then what we were saying about when we were having our stomach aches, so introducing food and herbs that are helpful, so watery and cooling, moistening herbs. Yeah, and then putting forth the intention that I'm gonna go with the flow today. Like whatever comes my way, I'm gonna let it happen and it's going to be okay. Allowing myself to go with the flow of the day.
Mm.
Yeah, there's many other ways too, but these are some really great ways.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's like, there's a reason that pretty much every traditional healing system around the world has its base in elemental theory. So whether it's looking at these five elements, in Chinese medicine, they have a little different perspective. They bring in the wood and the metal element. Ayurveda kind of combines these elements for the doshas. But there's a reason that all of these disconnected people all over the world who had no means of communicating with each other thousands of years ago came to understand the human body and our energy in relation to the earth, because we are the earth and we're made of these very same elements. And so I love that in this modern day and age, we can, like, take it with the food, the herbs, the movement, all the very traditional, like, health-oriented things. That's great, and there's so many tangible things, to incorporate like that, but also these more, like, emotive, personal, spiritual practices, like dancing or feeling your emotions. We see the elements show up in so many layers, and so that's what brings us kind of to looking at, okay, our society nowadays. Remember when Kaylee was talking about excess air? So that's all about speed, movement. And when it's a little bit in excess, it's like all over the place, very mental, lots of thinking, hyperactivity, automatic actions. And I think that we see that a lot in today's society with our screen time, with all of our very much living in our heads and not so much working from our hands or being in our creativity or grounding our lives and our food into the soil. It's like we're up here and we're going. Um, so Kaylee, like, we see, and I would even say we talked about this too, like how fire could be kind of excess in today's society with the
Mhm.
go and the hyper masculine and the, like, all consuming, it's very consumptive. We obviously live in that materialistic age. And so even looking at the elements on a societal level like this, like, we can start to bring in those strategies for balance. And of course, everyone needs more earth element, more grounding. So what are your strategies, your favorite strategies for that, Kaylee, that can help us kind of combat more of these societal imbalances that we're experiencing?
Yeah, Bailey, these are all great questions. I let these questions rumble around in my head a lot. How can we start to shift ourselves as a society? Because that's what we need to start doing, right? If we want to see the change, we need to be the change. Um, and so, just like Bailey was saying, right, excess air is up here. It's super mental. We're not in our body, right? So the longest path, the longest road in the world, is from our head up here, right into our heart. So we need to start moving our energy down into our heart, down into our body. So super simple, getting in contact with the earth, taking off your shoes and letting your feet touch the bare earth, or picking up, a shovel, some seeds, and start planting in the earth. Whether that be, a balcony garden or a plot of land. Um, and then, yeah, grounding, meditation, and yoga. Um, Yoga can be really good because we are moving our energy into our body, which is what we want. And then grounding meditation, any kind of meditation where we're stopping and pausing. Remember that air is all about speed, and so meditation allows us to pause, and that's really healthy for strengthening our earth.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, connecting to community. Remember that a strong earth is, think of that like pile of like beautiful soil. It's full of humus, but it also has like the little sticks and the leaves, and you want that diverse community of things in your soil, and connecting. It's all connected. So connecting to our community is really important. Participating in community events, leading a community event, whether that be like a neighborhood pickup or whatever it might be. Um, yeah, home cooked meals. What we put in our body is one of the easiest ways to start to shift our elements. So home cooked meals are really great for bringing in more earth. In particular, root vegetables. If you're not vegan or vegetarian, meat, in particular red meat, but also eggs are really good. Fermented veg is also really good. Yeah, and then routine and ritual. Routine is really important. Um, and just knowing, so you know what to expect. That's really important for the earth element, knowing what's going to happen every afternoon, what's going to happen every morning when you wake up. So there's not that our bodies don't go into the fight, flight, freeze response because it doesn't know what's going to happen next. So routine is really important. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, our course in April.
Yeah, so I think that, what Integra was really born out of was seeing a lot of these collective imbalances in the world today and feeling it ourselves, like all of us who started the organization, we had these different experiences where we were living in community or farming, working with the earth, growing our own food in really beautiful ways, but they were all kind of these temporary experiences, and then we'd be immersed back into the modern hustle and bustle and kind of steeped in this collective imbalance and disconnect that I think so many of us are experiencing. And like we said in elemental terms, like just this excess air living in our heads, and really a lack of that grounding earth element and a lack of the ether element too, like a connection to something bigger than us, to spirit, to the energy of nature. And so that's why we started our organization. And what we're trying to bring to folks in our events. And that definitely um, is showing up in a big way in this course that we are going to be co-hosting with Kealy in April. So, Earth, Body, Spirit, Embodying the Elements is going to be a 6-day course in Chapel Hill, North Carolina this spring. It's at a beautiful venue called Sanctuary Farm, formerly known as the Eco Institute. And yeah, we're just super excited to be bringing people together to embody the elements. And this presentation today is quite like airy. Like we're just spitting all this information at you, and like you're learning it intellectually. You're on a screen. But what we really want to do with this course is to have people come and feel it in their bodies and to feel the elements in their bodies, to understand how they manifest in themselves, and how we can start to bring in these strategies for balance. And so I know that for Integra, our goal is really to empower people who come with like an elemental toolkit of these very practical strategies for strengthening and balancing the elements, so that you can do that for yourself, your own well-being, your own health, and also in your relationships, in your communities, and letting that ripple out into society at large. And I know Kealy feels the same, and is excited to share this too.
Yeah, yeah, I'm super, super excited to be pairing up with the Integra team. Amazing, amazing team over there. And what I love about this course is that there's not only just going to be the quote unquote theory, kind of the theory behind the elemental framework, but there's going to be walkaway tools that everyone will be able to know what to do, how to do when we finish the course altogether. Yeah, just a sampling of it. It's going to be really great on the Earth Day, right? We're going to be touching the soil. We're going to be moving into the space of touching the soil, allowing our energy to be with Mother Nature's energy, and at the same time forming connections with the teachers, or maybe more the leaders, and the participants all together will be forming those connections. Um, I love that we are going to be, yeah, like Bailey said, feeling the energy. We're going to be doing these things, and I have a really strong sense that you'll be feeling your energy shift during the modules, which I like think is really exciting because oftentimes when you take courses on the internet, you're like, "Oh, okay, this is really great and lots of lovely information and it could be helpful." But when we move it from our head into our body, right? That's the groundingness of the information. We can own it. We can own that information on our body level, which is one of the most impactful ways of learning. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and so this is just a little sampling of the schedule, and looking at how we're gonna be spending our days together. And so Kaylee's gonna have a nice chunk of time in the morning to really dive deep into each element. So, at the beginning, she did like a 2-minute intro to each element. In this class, we're gonna have like 2.5 hours to really understand how this element shows up in the world around us and in us. And then the Integra team, part of our job is to make that even more tangible, and to give you those toolkits for balancing them and strengthening them. So, on water day, going to be really connecting to our internal waters, our kidneys, our lymph, and then our creativity, and on fire, just having the opportunity to like blaze. And so we really are excited too for this to be almost like a theatrical and like co-creative experience with the participants, because we're all going to be feeling this energy shift within us and like riding the wave of the elements, which is just an amazing opportunity to kind of immerse yourselves completely. Um, so that's what we're here to just dive even deeper with y'all. And so there's more information about the course on the Integra Collective website. And after this webinar, y'all will get a follow-up email with the recording and some more information about the course. And that's where you can see the full schedule. You can kind of get a feel for our narrative that we're building around the course, which is a fun little lens we're using to just build like a story with you guys and to build a world and experience while we're gathering together, and just to get all of the dirty details. And of course, if you have any questions as you're going through the page, you can reach out to us, at hello@integracollective.org. But yeah, we're just super excited to dive way deeper into all of this elemental knowledge, and hope that what you guys gathered today was valuable in itself and is a great start on this journey, of working with the elements within you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bailey, for co-hosting this. This has been really fun and wonderful. Y'all, I hope that yeah, this is helpful in your journey of self-healing. I believe that the more self-aware we are, the more we understand ourselves, the why and the how and the interconnectedness of it all, the more that we can be our own healers, right? As self-healers. And the more healed and aligned we are, the more healed and aligned our communities will be, our families will be, right? Then our communities and then our society at large. So I'm really, really excited to be sharing this wisdom with you all. And yeah, I hope we get to see some of you guys in April.
Awesome. And if anybody has any questions, we have a couple minutes if folks want to drop anything into the chat. But otherwise, we'll follow up with you guys, get you the recording, even the slideshow, and some more information about the course. So thank you guys. And thank you so much, Kaylee. Just really excited to keep sharing this elemental medicine, with the world, and bringing some balance to these chaotic times, with some ancient wisdom. So thank you guys, and of course reach out, and I'm gonna stop the recording and